Just 1 year after Fostex released the T50 in 1974, Sansui used their technology to create the SS-100. It is one of the most celebrated planar headphones ever made, and some marketing material described it as isodynamic like the Wharfedale ID1, although in most cases they have been called omnidynamic, which not only has a nice ring to it, but is exactly what is printed on the headband. The build of the headphone is fundamentally identical to almost every other major planar headphone of the era, but taken to the extreme. Each part has a noticeably greater level of care and detail, which is what Sansui lovers have come to expect from the brand from their highest level products of their golden era. Unfortunately, the wearing comfort does not live up to the aesthetics. Not only does the headband have to be carefully bent to suit your head shape and ear angle, but the human interface with the headphone is just about one of the thinnest earpads you will ever find. Moving on to the most interesting aspect of the build are the rubber suspension straps. The driver enclosure is entirely suspended by rubber, isolating it from the headband. While there are no mechanical moving parts that can creak or make noise, this is the kind of extreme isolation and innovation thinking that I love to see in vintage headphones. The fabric-sheathed cable is yet another step in achieving as close to perfect mechanical isolation as possible. To open these headphones is a rather trivial matter of simply twisting the rear of the cups anti-clockwise. Once the rear part twists about 0.5 centimeters, it should be ready to be carefully lifted off. I would recommend caution here, as you need to preserve the integrity of the rear damping material as much as possible, as this material cannot be found today. If you want to have a look at the driver or do any maintenance, you need to remove the 8 screws. Make sure to remember the orientation of the screws, as one set of 4 screws is longer than the other 4, and be extra careful in the final step of separating the driver parts, as the magnets are a bit stronger than average and they will want to twist away from each other and then attract again, which might pinch the diaphragm. I would not recommend anyone do this without experience or excellent dexterity. Opening the driver reveals the diaphragm and magnets. Long-time viewers of this channel have seen this diaphragm already when I opened up the NAD RP18, which contains fundamentally the same driver as that in the Fostex T50. What is different, however, is the magnet. As a side note, sometime before this review, I quickly refurbished the tensioning foam between the diaphragm and driver capsule, which had completely turned to dust, affecting the frequency response and performance. It's not a perfect refurbishment, but it's a lot better than it was before. Anyway, I don't think we'll ever know the exact list of events that occurred leading up to the creation of this headphone, but one thing is clear. The driver diaphragm used in this headphone is from the 1974 Fostex T50, and the magnets we see here were used in Fostex's 1976 headphone, the T30. So there are several possibilities. In 1975, either Fostex was in the middle of developing the T30 and this was one of their experiments. The T30 was deliberately delayed while this technology was leased or bought in order to reduce direct competition. Or Fostex deliberately offered this experimental driver combination to other companies because they did not want to use it themselves. One thing is abundantly clear, the SS-100 driver is significantly less sensitive than other Fostex drivers, so perhaps while it did reach linearity targets, it did not meet their sensitivity targets. It's always fun to speculate, but it doesn't get us anywhere, so let's continue. These headphones sound incredible. They completely live up to their hype. The linearity offered by these headphones is still today among the very best of the best. The T50 diaphragm is by design at low tension, so sub-bass reproduction is absolutely stellar. Cranking up the bass boost on my Fuzzy Audio SK01 is taken effortlessly. It has just the right combination of slam and depth that is on the side of being fast and dry, exactly the kind of flavor we expect from a good planar. Again, like all vintage planars, treble volume is lacking, so a stronger boost is required here, again taken effortlessly. So adding a healthy V-shaped tone correction is my personal recommendation, but I know it's not required to enjoy this headphone. The timbre and texture just sounds right. If you know, then you know. Sometimes you just put on a headphone and you know that something isn't quite right, but it's not enough to bother you, and due to subjective preferences or some other strong features like a big soundstage or deep thunderous bass, the headphone remains extremely enjoyable. The Sansui SS-100 is almost the opposite. It doesn't offer a big stage. It doesn't wow you with extra spice. It's one of those truly honest headphones. Objectively, I still think it needs a little V-shaped tone boost to reach true linearity, but that's neither here nor there. The mid-range speaks truth. In terms of detail retrieval, yes, the technology is dated, but damn, it's really not far behind. Compared to the YH-1000 that I reviewed last week, the SS-100 sounds more tonally accurate, but the YH-1000 sounds a bit more textured and more fun, especially in the sub-bass. But it's a close call, especially after tone correction. If I had to pick one to keep, it would be the YH-1000, but I know there are others who really dislike the YH-1000 and prefer the SS-100. Nobody's perfect. Compared to the NAD RP18, which is the closest thing I have on hand to the original Fostex T50, the overall clarity in the RP18 is reduced, but the sub-bass slam is easily superior and responds better to boosting. The RP18 holds its own as a great higher-end beginner vintage planar, but the SS-100 proves its objective superiority in all other regards. In the end, I'm just glad to see the prices of these finally coming down. There was a time these were flipping for around 800 to 1,000 euros a pop, which is simply ridiculous considering these aren't particularly rare compared to other models, and many of them are still in fairly good to great condition today. So if you're more of a purist, then these are probably the vintage planar for you. If, like me, you prefer headphones with a bit more personality, then I would suggest looking elsewhere. That's it for now. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.